Good afternoon. It's Chris Potter, June 10th, 2017. I wanted to clarify some information from what I understand on Sofia, as it has been apparently tracking something over the last 4 days. It's basically a 747 rigged with the telescope ran by NASA. I believe it does refuel in Palmdale, California, and potentially Moffett Field. Both facilities work at collaborating on running the Sofia observatory and collecting data, deciphering it, getting out to the public, etc. All right, so he made a claim, and again, I can't verify this, and I'm not saying anything bad about the guy or anything. I just find it interesting, and I wanted us to at least pay attention to the fact that he's saying that you can open the windows, and that's where it observes, and it looks like they're actually monitoring something in the sunrise, okay? Multiple days in a row from here, and then sunset right here. So what you can actually do, again, Sofia, it's a modified 747 SP aircraft carrying a reflective telescope that has a diameter of 2.5 meters. It has a 20-year lifetime. It's the largest airborne observatory in the world, right? And it does look for things that are infrared. He had also mentioned that there's a meteor shower, and that meteors are happening, upwards of 150 meteors an hour. I do know that we are still in the middle, possibly, of the daytime Aretids shower. It was supposed to peak on June 7th. Now, I couldn't find anything from Sofia's site, what they're doing, their latest news, or a search of Sofia from NASA's press release site. I wanted to look at the flight pattern for the last 4 days, which you can do very easily. Let's see. Oh. Hold on. Okay, so right. So there's the pattern from yesterday. From the 8th, it's there. Do you notice the angles? Okay. Similar angles. All right. So you tell me what they're doing. They're doing double shifts. Now, we do know that it probably can detect plutonium from Hanford, Washington. All right. But the flight patterns are suspiciously faced towards the east and then the west.
Sofia has a lot of characteristics which are very similar to a normal passenger airplane, except for the fact that we've completely gutted the insides, and there's a hole in the side of the airplane the size of a garage door, and that there's a 17-ton telescope mounted in the back. But other than that, it's pretty much like a regular airplane. My name is Eric Young. I'm the director of the Sofia Science Center. We operate the telescope and the airplane crew that do the science operations. Sofia is a collaboration between NASA and the German Aerospace Center. The Germans have provided the telescope, NASA's provided the airplane. We put a telescope on the airplane because there are parts of the spectrum which are completely blocked in the Earth's atmosphere. This is primarily in the infrared part of the spectrum, and that's basically the heat radiation that's coming from objects. Appearance of things that we can see in visible light is primarily because things are hot enough to give off visible wavelengths. If you get things too cold, then things look redder, and eventually they're so red the human eye can't see them anymore. What we are actually then sensing is a different kind of light, and it's called infrared. And it turns out that there's a lot of material in the universe. The dust, planets like the Earth, clouds in space, they're all too cold to normally emit in visible light, but by looking in the infrared, we're able to sense them, detect them, and measure their properties. Sofia is a 747 SP, called a special performance airplane. It's a little bit shorter than a typical 747, and that's so that it would have lighter weight, but have a longer range and higher performance. We begin our missions typically at 39,000 feet or so, a little bit higher than a typical passenger airplane. As we use up fuel and the plane becomes lighter, then we're able to go a little bit higher, and then up to 41,000 feet, and then up to 43,000 feet toward the end of the flight. We're always trying to be as high as possible because the main thing that blocks infrared light from reaching the ground is water vapor, and Sofia will fly above more than 99% of the water vapor in the atmosphere.
It must be about midnight, and we're aboard the Sofia aircraft. It's an airborne observatory with a big telescope in the back that you can see behind me.
I'm going to set us up for spectroscopy, but I need you to mark where and I tell you to mark it.
Just check all the pointing for nearby stars and then check it on Saturn again.
The Earth's atmosphere absorbs at a lot of different wavelengths. We're familiar with the protection we get from ozone blocking out ultraviolet light, but water vapor also is a very strong absorber. Getting up high in the atmosphere, the temperature drops and the water condenses out. Up where we are right now, it's maybe 40 degrees below zero, and the humidity is phenomenally low. All the absorption that we suffer from as ground-based infrared astronomers is mostly underneath our feet here. Another advantage of doing airborne astronomy, in addition to the infrared spectrum opening up, is that we fly in the stratosphere, and the stars don't twinkle up here. The reason stars twinkle down where we're used to on the ground is because of turbulence in the troposphere, and the stratosphere it isn't turbulent. Probably the sweet spot for Sofia is star formation. The way a star forms is by collapsing out of a molecular cloud, and those are very cold, and as they collapse and shrink they get hotter, and eventually the star forms and lights up and starts to blow away the dust around it. But it's during those early phases when it's really cold that you need the longest wavelengths, and then as it gets warmer you need to work towards shorter wavelengths to see what's happening.
Sofia has a reflecting telescope. The primary mirror is about 100 inches in diameter, and we make that big to collect as much light as we can. We have direct access to the atmosphere. Most glass is also opaque to the infrared, and so if we tried to make a window out of glass, then we wouldn't be able to see through that either. We had to modify the shape of the outer fuselage to ensure that the air would flow over the surface without causing a lot of disturbance, because you have this large aperture.
So is the star there and we're tracking?
Yes, it is. We're tracking on AOI2.
The telescope on Sofia is constantly adjusting to all the little tiny motions of the airplane. What we have on Sofia are a set of gyroscopes, a set of cameras, and a set of actually moving mirrors, and all of these systems together adjust the telescope to keep it on track. In one sense, it's simpler to launch a satellite into space, because once it's up there, then it stays in space all the time. But unlike a satellite, Sofia will come home every night. Because we're able to change cameras, we can have the kind of flexibility that you wouldn't in a space mission. Flying a mission on Sofia actually is very hard work. It's usually like a 14-hour day.
Okay, go ahead.
I think
Start
most
taking
people are naturally daylight people, and Sofia doesn't have a coffee maker on board right now. But
Okay.
the astronomers tend not to have a problem staying awake, because you're very busy, you're also excited about your observations, and in terms of a telescope flying that's doing astronomical observations, Sofia is the biggest and the best.
Does Ted need to shoot an image or not before we leave the star? I believe he does.
He already did.
He has? Okay. All right, then he has.